Quietly, if the new TOEFL 2002 speaking interview makes you freeze, this video is a dedicated 20-minute practice session you can repeat before your test. We'll do two things over here. First, I'll show you a very simple answer structure you can reuse for many questions. Then I'll give you 3 full sets of interview questions. Each question gives you about 45 seconds to speak, just like in the real exam. You don't need perfect grammar right now. The goal is to keep talking until the end in a clear, simple way. Let's talk about this simple answer structure, the template. Okay. For most interview questions, you can safely use this structure: statement, reason, and example. The important part is that your example has a clear mini story inside it, like this. Before, there was a problem, and maybe there was some negative impact after this problem happens. But everything changes when you take an action that is mentioned in the statement, and then through some process, this problem is solved and there's some positive outcome. Okay. So it becomes a small cause and effect story. Okay. Let me show you with an example question. What is your favorite outdoor activity? A simple answer might be, statement, my favorite outdoor activity is jogging. Reason, this is because I feel much more relaxed after I jog. Example, for example, a few years ago, I had a lot of work-related stress. The problem, I couldn't eat well and I couldn't sleep well either. The outcome, so I felt tired and anxious every day. The outcome, after my doctor suggested that I started running or do some light exercise, I began jogging in the evening a few times a week. So that's the action that is mentioned in the statement. While I'm running the process, my heart rate increases and I sweat a lot, so I can only focus on the road and my own breathing. In addition, I temporarily forget my worries because I'm so focused when I run. After about an hour of jogging, the results, problem solved, my mind feels clear, my mood is much better, and I feel more energized and ready to face the next day in the office. So that's the outcome. So basically, before, after, you don't have to follow the exact logic progression. As long as you can speak 4 to 5 seconds, do that. Okay. This particular answer is around 90 to 100 words. For the new TOEFL test, 80, somewhere between 80, 90, 100. These are all totally fine. You don't need to speak very fast, like more than 110 words. You can, but you're not going to get higher score. In the past, in the old TOEFL, it was important that you speak more than, say, 113 words. That is 150 words per minute, but not anymore. So you can reuse almost the same logic for many questions. If the question is about your favorite hobby or your favorite food or some activity that you do with friends or family, you can just change the problem and the action. The action is, again, in the question. So you don't have to come up with something like totally new. If you're taking the new TOEFL 2026 and want extra practice, timing, and scoring guides and updates as we collect more real results, there's a link below this video. Fill out the short form and I'll send them to you. So here are some common problems: feeling stressed or overwhelmed, feeling disconnected from family or friends, feeling lonely or bored, or have a weak relationship with someone. And of course, the corresponding positive outcomes will be feel more relaxed and calm, feel more connected or bonded, improve or strengthen a relationship, or have a better mood and more energy. You can also prepare some process phrases that you can use in the example before you eventually talk about the positive results, the positive outcome. It's used in the middle of the story. So you can always have template phrases like this. While I am doing this during this time, during this process, step by step, I start to. As a result, I began to, things like that. And sometimes in interview questions, you will bump into future questions. some questions related to the future, like will people still do something in the future? You can say, yes, I think people will continue to do this because people now and in the future all want to feel more relaxed, or they all want to stay close to their families. So that's why they will continue to do this. Or if you bump into a question about whether an activity is essential for human life, you can say yes, because it gives people more time to relax, or it gives people more opportunities to build relationships. So that's why it's essential to human lives. So again, remember statement, reason, and example. And inside the example, before a problem, after an action, you have some positive results. The problem is solved. Now it's time to practice. You can try implementing what we talked about in the following 5 sets of interview questions. You will hear 5 sets of questions that are very similar to the ones that you will bump into in the real test, and each set contains 4 questions. And all the timing and the visual effect is very similar to what you're going to see in the test. Before you start, one last thing, I want you to prepare your phone, open any simple voice recorder app, and record every answer you give when you use this video. After all 5 sets are played, I'll show you how you can debug after the practice.
Thank you for speaking with me about your morning routines. What do your family or friends usually do in the morning before starting their day? I see. When you start your day, do you prefer to follow a set morning routine or be more flexible and spontaneous? Interesting. Next, I'd like to get your opinion. These days, many people try to improve their mornings with habits like stretching or journaling. Do you think such structured morning routines will become even more popular in the future? Why or why not? Good points. I just have one more question. Some people believe that having a consistent morning routine is essential for maintaining good mental well-being. Do you agree? Or do you think people can stay mentally healthy without a fixed routine? Thank you for speaking with me about visiting cultural festivals. In your country, what kinds of cultural festivals do people usually attend? Why? That's interesting. When you visit a festival, do you prefer going with a group of friends or exploring on your own? Why? Good point. Let me ask you something else. Many cities are creating more cultural events each year. Do you think cultural festivals will become even more popular in the future? Why or why not? Thanks. Here is my last question. Some people believe that attending cultural festivals is essential for understanding a country's identity. Do you agree, or do you think there are other ways to learn about culture just as effectively? Explain why you think so. I'd like to ask you some questions about smartphone use in daily life. What do your family or friends typically use their smartphones for the most? Why? Thank you. When you use your smartphone, do you prefer using it mainly for communication, like messaging and calls, or for entertainment, like videos and games? That makes sense. Now I have another question. Smartphone use has increased a lot in recent years. Do you think people will rely on smartphones even more in the future? Why or why not? That's helpful. Now for my final question. Some people believe that limiting smartphone use is essential for maintaining good mental health. Do you agree? Or do you think smartphones can be used in a healthy way without strict limits? Today, I'd like to ask you some questions about healthy eating habits. What kinds of healthy foods do your family or friends usually try to include in their meals? I see. When you choose what to eat, do you prefer cooking meals at home or buying food from restaurants? Interesting. Next, I'd like to get your opinion. Recently, more people have become interested in nutrition. Do you think healthy eating will become even more popular in the future? Why or why not? Good points. I just have one more question. Some people believe that maintaining healthy eating habits is essential for long-term well-being. Do you agree? Or do you think other lifestyle factors are just as important, Explain why you think so. Thank you for speaking with me about online learning. In your country, what do students or workers usually use online learning platforms for? Why? That's interesting. When you study online, do you prefer live online classes or self-paced recorded lessons? Why? Good point. Let me ask you something else. Online learning has grown rapidly in recent years. Do you think it will become even more common in the future? Why or why not? That's helpful. Now for my final question. Some people believe online learning is essential for gaining new skills today. Do you agree, or do you think traditional in-person learning is still more effective?
Okay, so you're now done with the practice. So how do you debug? Okay, after you finish speaking, you have a lot of audio files. You can use ChatGPT or other transcription tool to turn them into transcript. Okay, you upload it into your mobile app or whatever. Okay, and ask ChatGPT to turn it into text. And then you go into debugging mode. Look at the transcript and mark where you drift off topic, where you run out of words and stop early, or where your grammar breaks down very badly. Sometimes you also have to look at where your fluency breaks, like where are the long pauses or many restarts or a lot of stuttering. In addition, you have to look at where your example collapses and you never reach the end of the story. So based on what you find, you create a small strategy for the next practice. If you always stop in the middle, for example, you could prepare some buffer phrases like, while I was doing that, during this time, during the process, after doing that, step by step, I started, these will buy you time. And for example, if you forget what to say or still searching for the word to describe the outcome, you can say something like, so after everything, I felt better, I'm much happier, I'm in a better mood, things like that. Again, there's always something that you can develop to do better next time. Okay. Don't expect perfection after 1 or 2 tries. Aim for improvement and adaptation. So you try one small changes and then record again and record a few different answers, maybe try different questions as well. And you have to look at the improvement, the delta, instead of trying to fix everything at the same time. If your answer becomes a little bit longer, clearer, and more complete each time, you're moving in the right direction. So if you stayed until this point, you just did a full new TOEFL interview workout. That is already much more than most people do before their test. So here's how you use this video. Again, come back and repeat one set or all 5 sets a few times before you test. And each time, try to follow either my structure or your updated structure